What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Three Gyms Talk Hockey. I'm your host, Solon Mihas, alongside Michael Cardoza and Matt Milko. We haven't been able to record an episode in quite some time just because last month the three of us graduated from Sacred Heart University, actually a month to the day. So big round of applause for all the fellas. With that being said, thanks to a class that I had to take, it required me to start a project of my own choice. That project ended up being Three Gyms Talk Hockey podcast. We all really enjoyed what we were doing back at Sacred Heart, and we decided to get the necessary materials to keep recording episodes and get this show on the road on a more regular basis. With that being said, let's get right into it with the Stanley Cup Finals. We've had three amazing games. I mean, two really amazing games, and then one kind of surprise game that'll give us something to talk about. I just want to kick it right off with game one. I think game one was a really exciting game for what it was. Everyone knew what to expect, but I think that was hands down one of the better games that we've gone to start a Stanley Cup final. So I just want to get you guys' thoughts watching that game. What went through your head? Was it what you guys expected? And yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, while watching that game, there was definitely everything that you want in a Stanley Cup final. You have intensity, passion for the game, and tons of physicality throughout the game. Obviously, playing in Alberta, you expect Edmonton to be at the top of their game. They've been playing unreal in Alberta throughout the entire playoff series. Obviously, your star players came out. Sam Bennett having a day, 2 goals. I mean, he's been on a heater these entire playoffs. Obviously, if the Panthers go on to win the cup again, there's a real chance that he could win the Conn Smythe at the rate he's playing at. And then you have your big guns on the other side, Leon Draisaitl coming out, scoring, I believe, almost less than 2 minutes into the game, and then responding big with the OT winner. So it was a really entertaining game. Great way to start the series. I think this is one of 20 Stanley Cup series to start game one with an OT. So it's everything you can ask for. I mean, everyone loves overtime hockey, or overtime in general. And, I do believe that Edmonton did deserve to win that game. And overall, I thought that when it came down to the biggest moment, you had your biggest guys step up, and that's exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, the first two games of the series have been honestly probably the best two games of the whole entire playoff so far. They were both nuts, and if you say I expected it, I probably would say yes, but not to that level of extent. Those two games were absolutely every minute of the game was hits, fast paced play. It was just insane. Um, I disagree, Melks, that the Oilers deserved to win that game. They scored with maybe a minute and a half left to tie it up to force overtime. I honestly think Florida came out really well for first game in Alberta, but that's a story for another day. As the Oilers kind of did the same thing in the second game where they tied it up late in overtime and then they ended up losing, or tied it up late in the third and ended up losing in overtime.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm on Michael's side with this one. I think that this was one of the best starts to Stanley Cup final that we've gotten in a very, very long time. And with that being said, I don't necessarily think that Edmonton deserved to win, but I also don't think that Florida deserved to win either. And the reason why I say that is because they were up 3-1. They had a 3-1 lead, 3-2 cushion going into the third. And the one correction I'll make is that they tied it up, I want to say around the halfway mark of the third period. They tied it up late in game two with less than 20 seconds left. Regardless, that was just a back and forth team. That was just a battle between a Florida Panthers team that's good at shutting down teams and an Edmonton Oilers team that makes a lot of third period comebacks. Generally, I think both teams played to their strengths, and it was literally just two heads colliding. It was like trying to put two positive magnets together. It just doesn't happen. So they were colliding heads. I think that they played one hell of a game, and then obviously Connor McDavid is on another planet. And on top of it, Corey Perry made an outstanding play in overtime, which led to the McDavid to Draisaitl assist to win the game with 30 seconds left in that first overtime period. So that first game, I think, really opened up everyone's eyes and was like, wow, like this wasn't game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. This was practically a game 8. These two teams came out, they knew what they were getting at with each other, and like Leon Draisaitl didn't have a single goal in last year's Stanley Cup Final. Opens up the first game this year with 2. So little things like that could be the difference maker, and it obviously was in this case. But McDavid, 3 assists. Did that surprise a lot of people? No, but you can't really overlook that just because that's a generational player putting up generational stats at a rate that we may never see again. I mean, a lot of people said that with Gretzky as well, but it may be decades before we see something like that again. So that first game was really unbelievable.
I did see a stat. Like, I think it came out yesterday after the game. McDavid currently has a better percentage of points in the finals, in the Stanley Cup Final, than Wayne Gretzky. It's like 1.77 to 1.71 or something like that, which is absurd considering Gretzky played 40 years ago, 30 years ago. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean,
McDavid just on another level.
Like you said, Gretz literally retired 26 seasons ago, so a quarter of a century ago, and now you got someone like McDavid challenging numbers that he put up 2-3 decades ago in a new era of hockey at a faster paced game. So what he's doing is absolutely incredible, and the numbers that he puts up in the finals specifically is just unfathomable. And the Panthers are a team that can't contain Connor McDavid. He's putting up almost 2 points per game in his career, both regular season and playoffs against the Panthers alone. Panthers have a lot of work to do in terms of how.
Go for it.
Oh, I was going to say that the Panthers have a lot. the Panthers have a lot to consider in terms of how to defend someone like McDavid, but you really can't game plan for someone of his caliber. You just kind of have to cross your fingers and do what you can and hope for the best.
Yeah, that's why luckily the Florida Panthers have the best two-way center in hockey right now with Alexander Barkov. Trying to lock him down. I mean, I know that's a challenge for him probably every night. Can't be easy. If you look at his stats this series, I mean, Barkov hasn't really done much offensively. I don't think he even has a point yet. But you look at his defensive responsibility, and it completely makes up for it because he's having to go against the best. I mean, this guy's going to be in the GOAT conversation. He already kind of is, but give him another 10 years down the road, and he's going to be up for that debate with pretty much everyone in the hockey world. Going back to what you mentioned earlier about comparing, last year's series to this year's series, and how Leon Draisaitl wasn't really a big impact player. He didn't have any goals, I believe, or if he did, it wasn't really significant.
No, Leon did not have a goal in the finals last year.
Now you look at this year's finals, he's fully healthy. Last year's finals, we all know he was battling stuff. I mean, all these guys battle through injuries, but whatever he was going through, like, this guy could barely skate. Now that he's fully healthy, you have 2 top 5 forwards in the league, one of them being the best forward in the league, going up against a stacked Florida roster. So obviously it's going to make a huge difference. And Edmonton, they might not have deserved to win game 1. Sure, you guys can make that argument, but they absolutely needed to win game 1, I believe. They needed to start on the right foot, give them any sort of momentum possible, considering how the last series went. And they know the type of team that they're up against, because once Florida gets a grasp on you, they're just going to keep stepping on your neck. They're not going to stop. They're just going to keep on going.
The one thing that you mentioned was Alexander Barkov, how he hasn't had a point so far this year, how he's the best two-way forward in the NHL. I mean, he did just win the Selke, so that's not a lie. But another thing that's not a lie is the fact that the Panthers actually have the 2 best defensive forwards in the NHL, and Barkov and then Sam Reinhart. Now, going back to the McDavid conversation, moving on to game 2 now, that little shimmy around Barkov and then the toe drag around Ekblad that McDavid had that led to that Draisaitl goal. Aside from the fact that that first period was one of the best periods of hockey I've ever watched, Barkov got embarrassed. So did Ekblad, but specifically Barkov, for being the best defensive forward in the NHL. He looked like a cone. If someone like Barkov can't contain McDavid, or at least keep him in front of him, I don't really know what much more the Panthers could do to really get a grasp and stop McDavid from just doing whatever he wants whenever he wants.
There is not an answer for McDavid. I saw the post conference after that game. McDavid got asked if there's kids trying to replicate that type of play, how can they get there? And he was trying to come up with some answer for kids to have some hope. And Draisaitl just said, "It's not possible. Like, you're not getting there. There's no way someone is getting to that skill level." I mean, we never said it about Gretzky that no one will never see another person like Gretzky, and now we have McDavid. We'll see. I mean, there's Gavin McKenna, but I don't think anyone is. I don't think we've ever seen someone play the game of hockey like we've seen Connor McDavid, and I don't think we will for a long time.
It's also very interesting because, like, you can see how hungry McDavid is every shift. It's not even like he's playing the game at the highest rate possible every single time he's on the ice. And they're sending him out there. Like, they're double shifting him sometimes, especially when they need goals. They don't traditionally line up McDavid and Draisaitl together unless they really need goals because they have to separate the depth from that lineup somewhere. But this guy is so hungry for the cup. You know he wants it for his team and for Canada as well, to bring that cup back to Canada, considering it hasn't been there for a good 30 years. It's really, some of the plays he's able to make are absolutely like jaw-dropping and kind of unexplainable. But this guy is just, his hockey IQ is so high. I feel like everything's going so fast in his brain. He doesn't even have time to conceptualize what he's doing because he's just naturally doing it so perfectly. It's like the hockey gods just sculpted a perfect version of what you want out of a hockey player.
And then, as you mentioned, I mean, Dozer, you said that when Gretzky was playing, we weren't fortunate enough to watch Gretzky play, but I could only imagine that the conversation watching Gretzky play is similar to what we say watching McDavid. And now, like you said, you have a comparable. McDavid's compared to Gretzky. These types of players don't come around just every day, and the Oilers have practically two of them on their team at once. We have two of the best players in the world on a single team playing for the Stanley Cup, yet it still feels like they don't. Not only does Florida not have an answer on how to defend them, the McDrysaddle duo doesn't necessarily have an answer on how to beat Florida either. I mean, yeah, they won game one, they lost game two, both of them in overtime, but McDavid had 5 assists in those first 2 games. Draisaitl had 4 points, 3 goals and an assist, yet this series is tied 1-1. And then you look at the Florida side and you say, hey, Barkov and Sam Reinhart had 0 points each. Barkov was a -4 through those 2 games, and Reinhart was a -3. Those were 1 and 2 in voting for the Selke. That just shows you the caliber of skill and the types of players that are playing in this year's Stanley Cup Final. But the one player that I want to mention throughout the first 2 games that's been a really, really, really big unsung hero for me, at least personally, that I've noticed, is Nate Schmidt. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed what he's done the first 2 games of this series, but he's been remarkable. He has 4 points, or had 4 points, 2 assists in each of the first and the second games. And in that first game, his 2 assists, if you haven't seen them, go look back. Both of them were gorgeous passes, beautiful plays that led to goals. I don't know if you guys have noticed Nate Schmidt, but if you have, what have you guys seen from him? And has it surprised you at all? Just because he's a veteran in the league, we know what he could do, but at the same time, we haven't seen this in the finals from him before.
Honestly, nothing surprises me when it comes to Florida Panthers D-man when they get them, because I saw them turn ex-Ranger Nico Mikkola into a demigod against the Hurricanes in the semifinal. I mean, Nate Schmidt has already had a great playoff, and he's just continuing it into the final. I haven't noticed him as clearly as you, but I know Panthers D-men, they get the most out of them. I know they lead the playoffs in goals, so like they just get the most out of their D-men defensively and offensively. And I don't think when you hear the name Nate Schmidt, you don't think of he's going to put up 3 points and 4 points as a D-man and be their primary not primary, but be a guy that they're going to have to worry about creating plays and making offense.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the decor for the Florida Panthers, Nate Schmidt doesn't immediately come to your mind, right? But I will say when I do watch him on the ice, I think he's an excellent skater and he's a good physical presence in the defensive zone. And he also has that offensive upside as well where you can see him make plays. I mean, he's also running the second power play unit. He rushes up into the play with the guys that with the forwards. The guy that I really think has made the biggest difference, um, contradicting your point here though, is Brad Marchand. I mean, this guy, you can argue like single-handedly brought back the Panthers in game 2 and ultimately scored the game winner. But this guy is playing at an unreal rate. The Florida Panthers basically got him for nothing from the Bruins, and he's playing on the third line, guys. Like this is if this is not a third line player, but he's playing his role perfectly and he knows exactly what to do. I mean, he's scored in every game this series so far, and
Yeah, he
people
has
are
4 goals in the first 3 games.
like, he looks unstoppable, and he also seems to be doing what he does best, which is get in the heads of the other team. Like, he is in every scrum, he's picking fights, and then he's also proving how valuable he is of a player by putting up these points. And he doesn't he's a leader. Obviously, he has leadership experience, so he knows how to play his role and he has no problem doing that. And honestly, he's earning himself all the money that the Bruins weren't willing to give him for this upcoming offseason.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Marchand is going
mean,
to get a lot of. He's gonna get a lot more than everyone expected just because of his playoff performance this year. 100%.
and if we're going based off contracts, I mean, Sam Bennett is the $1 million man of the playoffs. He's racking up the bands as each game goes on. He's I mean, at this point I wouldn't be surprised if somebody offers him 10 million. Will it happen? I don't know, but that's been in the conversation as of late. I mean, this guy's got 14 goals in the playoffs, 4 in the playoffs alone. Milks, you said that you thought Marchand was like the biggest surprise, or contradicting my point about Nate Schmidt. I agree with you 100%. The only thing I disagree with was the fact that I don't think that Brad Marchand is an unsung hero. I think that people expected what Brad Marchand is doing, just not to the extent that he is. I think that people expected Marchand to go out there, be a rat, produce a little bit, just not produce as much as he is. But I think that everyone could say the same with Sam Ryan, or not Sam Reinhart, I meant Sam Bennett.
Yeah, you could say that, but like when you look at what Marchand's role is as a third line guy, you wouldn't expect him to be gelling, especially when he's coming in from the trade deadline. Like it's not like he played with the Panthers for the whole season, right? He played and he was also injured for the first almost month that he got after he got traded. So the fact that he was able to come in with this new team, gel with all the guys because they all love him in the locker room. You can hear it in the post game pressers, and then like throw him into a third line role where he's not going to be getting top line minutes. I mean, he's on the second power play, sure. He's on the PK, so he's still getting good minutes. But if you look at the numbers he's putting up as a third liner compared to, I mean, yes, Sam Bennett's playing out of his mind too, but like I would argue that Marchand with the third liner role
You keep bringing
is
up
the
the third
unsung
liner
hero.
role. Like
Is the
the Panthers don't have a set like third line. I feel like the Panthers' top 3 lines are all solid. Would be second line to first line lines on almost probably any team in the NHL. If you look at his minutes, he's not getting third line minutes. I disagree with the your third line point pretty heavily. He is having an unbelievable playoff and an unbelievable final. I'm not disagreeing about that, but you're trying to, and he's a professional. He's been there before. Like he's been in the playoffs many times. I think he knows what it takes to. Obviously, he knows what it takes to perform in the playoffs and how to get his body right. So he took the time off. He gelled with the boys, but I think he's obviously having an unbelievable playoff, but definitely not as unsung as you're hyping him up to be right now.
Yeah, I mean, I second that with Dozer just because like you look at the Panthers roster, they have depth deeper than any team in the league. Like Dozer said, he might be on the third line, but he's not playing third line minutes. They're tossing him out there in all situations, and they're doing it with confidence. The same way that the Bruins would do that. I mean, he wouldn't be a third liner on the Bruins, at least not this season, but if the Bruins had the depth to have Brad Marchand as a third line wing, anyone would be okay with that just because of Brad Marchand and the way that he plays. But going back to the depth of the Florida Panthers, I mean, not only do you have Sam Bennett, you have Brad Marchand, then you have someone like Matty Tkachuk, who, quite honestly, has looked almost invisible so far in these playoffs. I think he might have a point. And other than that, like, I feel like he hasn't been noticed at all.
I mean, I agree. I think it's coming off of the last playoff run. That's why we expect so much out of him. And it's kind of a weird turnaround from last year to this year because all of like Florida's really big names haven't really been having the best playoffs. They've still been great. Like Barkov, Reinhart, and Kachuk, probably their big three players, kind of been taking a step back while Marchand, Bennett, Verhaeghe all been going crazy and kind of been their main point getters. And that goes to Florida, how much depth Florida has. And now I would love to compare that to the Oilers' depth and how the Oilers kind of have like three players running the whole forward and points getting scheme for them. It's McDavid, Draisaitl, and Bouchard. Other than that, it's like Nugent Hopkins, who's dealing with an injury right now, and Corey Perry. It's the depth difference is crazy when you compare the two teams and just look at the depth chart.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. I mean, like you said, and then on top of it, the one thing that I will say is in yesterday's presser, Sam Reinhart was asked about how it felt, or okay, a little fast forward. We haven't gone to game 3 yet, but Sam Reinhart obviously scored in game 3. After the game, he was asked about his goal and what it meant and blah, 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 like the usual reporter questions. His answer has been the same as it has been throughout his entire little slump. He's like, it doesn't matter if guys on our team aren't scoring goals for a few games. He goes, we have such depth that guys are comfortable even when they're not producing because they have time to find their game within themselves. And the guys, everyone's for one another. Everyone's got each other's backs. And that's a big part as to why the Florida Panthers aren't just in the finals this year, but have been for the last 3 seasons and second consecutive final against the Oilers. So not only are both teams doing something right, both teams have the pieces to keep moving forward. But like you said, those are the way that both teams are structured are so different because it feels like Edmonton is circulating around 2-3 guys, the big 3, let's call them, in McDavid, Draisaitl, and then Bouchard. Aside from that, okay, yeah, you have Nugent Hopkins, you have Corey Perry, but Corey Perry's 40 years old. He's having the best postseason of anyone his age we've seen in NHL history. So for anyone to say that they were expecting it is lying to you. So the depth is uncomparable, but the success that both teams are having is a result of not only the players within the organization and the roster, it also has a lot to do with the coaching. And you could tell the confidence in each coach's voice when they speak about their team. They're confident in what they have, and they both believe, rightfully so, that they could hoist a Stanley Cup at the end of the season.
I mean, yeah, 100%. If you listen to Paul Maurice just talk about his team, like he has supreme confidence in all of his guys. It almost seems like he doesn't even care what Edmonton does because he knows that his team will find a way to respond back. And again, you don't need your big guys to be your best players in these moments because they have to match up against McDavid. Like I think those lines are almost just more concerned about shutting McDavid down and Draisaitl if he's paired with him on that line. Like the focus is not to score goals against those guys because you know that you're probably going to be hemmed in your zone or you're just going to be playing like a dump and chase game. So I wouldn't say it's too concerning that Matty Tkachuk hasn't been putting up playoff numbers like he was last season. I will say though that last game he definitely should have had like 3 points. He was giving out some really good passes that just couldn't get finished. I think Reinhardt actually had a wide open backdoor net that he just absolutely missed. Like you give that to any other guy on that team and it probably goes in. I don't know what happened with Reinhardt on that one, but like it's not that he isn't making plays, it's just they're either not getting finished or there's bigger plays happening within that shift that are just making it unnoticeable. Like when McDavid toe drags Ekblad and literally makes him fall on the ice. Like you're not going to notice anything else that happens in that shift because that was just jaw dropping.
Yeah, we've been silently hinting on this third game that just happened last night. So just like a quick little recap on the first two games. The first two games were probably two best hockey games that I've seen all playoffs. Best start to a Stanley Cup final that we've seen, at least in our lifetime, I believe. I can't think of another playoff or another final series that has started the way that this one has. Both teams have big guns exploding. Both goalies played tremendous. I mean, okay, look at the scores. They might have given up a few more goals than they should have, but I feel like the first two games were a battle between goaltenders in terms of who's going to make the last mistake. Not the first mistake, the last mistake. And in game one, it was obviously Bobrovsky. In game two, it was Stuart Skinner. Looking ahead to game three, I feel like everyone expected and anticipated a game similar to the first two that we saw in Edmonton. A big conversation going into game three was home ice advantage. Last year, Florida started off with home ice. This year, Edmonton starts off with home ice. Florida obviously went up 2-0 after the first two games. Edmonton split. That made game three a whole lot bigger in this series than people expect. The reason why I say that is because Edmonton loses, they technically lose home ice. Or they already did lose in game two, but they completely forfeit home ice with a game three loss. With a game three win, they're still looking pretty. Now, game three comes around. Spoiler alert, the Oilers lost. And not only did they lose, they got dummied. So I want to get your guys' thoughts just on game three last night as a whole before we get into the nitty gritty and the stats and what everyone did and who didn't do what.
I mean, I thought game three was definitely going to be better. I honestly had a feeling that the Panthers were going to win. The stars for Oilers kind of still showed up. It was just their defense kind of fell apart. Skinner gave up a couple bad ones. The first one kind of came way out of position, and Marchand kind of just threw it where he like came out of position from. And other than that, I would say pretty bad game from the Oilers, and I kind of hated what they did towards the end of that game. I know we're gonna get into that later, but they kind of just let the rails off and played into Florida's game. I think they racked up 85 penalty minutes. 85 penalty minutes in a playoff game is crazy.
Yeah, I mean it was a really ugly game and the Oilers just showed absolutely no discipline at all. That there was way too many penalties in the first period. You can't be giving Florida 4 power plays in the first period. It doesn't even give you a chance to settle into the game. So definitely uncharacteristic from the Oilers and I think everyone in that locker room is aware that they're not going to win games when they're shorthanded. They need to exactly kind of like you said, play their game. They're not as scrappy of a team as Florida. Florida wants to do that to you. And it ultimately fell to the hand, like it backfired in their face, and now they're gonna have to come out with a response in game 4 to make up for that, because that was a very poor performance and not something that a team that not something that any team can afford in a Stanley Cup playoff, to just drop a game 6-1.
Yeah, I mean, as we've been saying, game three was an absolute just destruction. Edmonton just exploded. Start of the game, Brad Marchand, the Rat, again, opens up the scoring less than a minute in. Right from the get-go, it kind of seemed like, all right, where's this game going to go? First period, like you said, both teams were undisciplined. You could point out Edmonton's 4 penalties that they took, but then you could look right over to the other side, and Florida also took 4 penalties. There were 8 total penalties in the first period alone. And with that being said, you don't win games. I mean, okay, I guess if you're Florida, you could win games if you take penalties all game, but you don't win games playing in the box. And the one player I'm going to point out specifically in the first period is Vander Kane. Vander Kane took 2 penalties in the first period, both within the first 2 minutes of his total ice time for the game. Vander Kane finished the game with 16 penalty minutes and didn't even lead the game in penalty minutes. Darnell Nurse did with 19. So as those of you brought up, that last half of the third period was more of a UFC event than it was a hockey game. In the Stanley Cup Final, you don't see that very often. There was 140 penalty minutes racked up throughout the entire game, and that's good for 4th most in any Stanley Cup Final game all time. So this game was one that we won't see for another good bit. But just generally, that first game or that first period, Florida was 1 for 31 on their power play going into that game at home. Iggy scores at the end of the first period. All right, the first goal led up with Skinner's fault. The second goal, Verhaeghe's goal, he picked the corner. He picked the corner. There was nothing Stuart Skinner could do about that. Now, my problem arises in the second period. In the second period, Corey Perry, once again, he finds the back of the net. He brings the Oilers within 1. At a 2-1 game, it's anyone's game. Just like this whole series has been going, one team scores, another team answers. Florida gets one back a minute and a half later. Sam Reinhart gets his first goal of the final. After that, all the wheels came falling off, and Edmonton could not figure it out. Brad Marchand adds a 4th. Then in the third period, Aaron Ekblad, who I really want to get into a little bit of a deeper conversation about Aaron Ekblad because I really liked his game, and I feel like he played a very big role in Florida's win in Game 3. He nets a power play goal, so their second power play goal of the night, chases Stuart Skinner out of the net, and then whatever, a 6th goal gets added, but the game was well over by that point. That 6th goal was scored by Evan Rodriguez. But yeah, I mean, all in all, Stuart Skinner, that was his one, I guess you could call it his one bad game of the finals. But what kind of went through your guys' head watching Stuart Skinner kind of get chased out of the net? Because this isn't the first time we've seen this playoffs. It's not it's a one-time occasion. This has happened multiple times. Like, let's remember, Calvin Pickard has won 6 games in this playoffs for the Edmonton Oilers.
I mean, I kind of expected it. The way the game was going, I knew if another one goes in, he's out of here. And I said he might not even start the next game, which I know this conversation is going to lead to. Which, if you had to ask my opinion, I would probably start Picard. The way Skinner has played well, he's made some great saves in big moments, but I think it's more about not giving up the mistake than saving the game. And I think Skinner is more of a more like he kind of overreacts and kind of puts himself out of position a little bit too much, which it does lead him to make some unbelievable saves and some super saves. But I think it costs him a little bit too much, and I probably would start Picard over Skinner. I think he's more reliable, and I think he's more tamed for the situation, if you will.
So yeah, obviously pulling Skinner made sense. The game was completely over. You don't want to risk him getting injured. You kind of just gotta pack your bags, look forward to the next game. On that topic, there's always the discussion as to why you would start Picard because of how well he has performed these playoffs, being 6-0, rallying your team while the starters hurt, showing up in big moments. I don't necessarily agree with putting in Picard, though, just because I think the fact that Stuart Skinner's already been there and that they've kind of just been riding him because he's been the hot hand. Like, obviously, you can say he cooled down, yada, yada, yada. I wouldn't necessarily blame him for how bad the Oilers lost, considering it was just, I mean, like I said again, a completely undisciplined game where they just fell apart. Like they just deviated from everything that they are accustomed to playing like. So I wouldn't put the blame on him. And like you kind of saw what happened when DeBoer pulled Ottinger to try to rally his team. I don't think you want to try to do that with Picard, who's primarily been an NHL backup goalie. I think it would be smarter to keep Stuart Skinner in. If another blowout loss happens like this in Florida, then you can continue the conversation. But I think at the point that the series is in right now, and the fact that it wasn't like all those goals scored against him weren't his fault. You can always like the Marchand goal, yes, but the rest of them, I wouldn't say they're his fault. So I would definitely keep riding Stuart Skinner because he's shown that he still can come up in the biggest games.
I'm gonna half agree with you here. I agree. You stick with Skinner. I understand the argument for Pickard, but I'm sticking with Skinner. But I disagree with your reasons, to be honest, Milks, because I wouldn't compare what's going on in Edmonton with Stuart Skinner with anything of what's going on with Ottinger. And the reason why I say that is because Ottinger's situation, why he got pulled in that whole thing, that was a whole debacle. I think that Pete DeBoer kind of had an idea that if they lost that game, his job is over. He was trying to not only save the season, he was trying to save his job. That's not necessarily the case in Edmonton. In Edmonton, Stuart Skinner has had a history of not playing good in the playoffs. Look at last season. Look at earlier this season. Listen, they let him out to dry. They needed a fresh start. Give Pickard the third period or the majority of it. And like you said, in one ear, out the other, move forward from this game. It's in the past. But now Skinner, I mean, okay, Noblock in his presser yesterday said he's not sure what he's going to do in terms of goaltending for game 4. I think he knows exactly what he's going to do, and I think he's going to stick with Stuart Skinner because assuming you put Pickard in or vice versa, even if you keep Skinner, you put Pickard, whatever the case may be, if you get blown out in game 4, now you're down 3-1 in the series going to Edmonton. I don't think there's any reason to switch a goalie down 3-1 in the final. Right now, Stuart Skinner's your guy. You're going to ride him. I think that by the time you go down 3-1, if that's what it comes down to, there's no point in taking Skinner out. You just let him ride. That's just a shot in the back of the head. Hey, you took us this far. We're not even going to give you that last game, win or lose. You know what I mean?
I think Skinner will start. I think that's the decision that's leaning towards. But Milks, I disagree with your point. I think is a completely different game in Edmonton. I agree with Solon than Dallas. But all I want to say is you're in the finals. You lost last year to this team. You got to put the guy in that is going to win the game. Like you think has a better shot to win the game. And it's probably Skinner right now. But I just think you got to have a really short leash. You're down 2-1 in the series. Skinner is known. He's got a history of giving up bad goals and getting pulled in the playoffs. And I don't know. I just want the Oilers to win, and I think the card is more steady in net.
Okay, wait, I want to clarify something. I'm not arguing that pulling Skinner for Picard was the same as pulling Ottinger for DeSmith. Like, I know that's completely different because the game was already over. I'm saying for going into the next game, like starting Pickard, and then I'm comparing that to DeBoer pulling Ottinger as like a way to try to rally your team.
Yeah,
I'm saying I don't think that's the route to go.
I don't think it's necessarily like for purposes to rally your team. I think it's the purpose to have the better goalie in that has a better chance to win. I think the Stars, no matter who you say who's the better goalie that you have a better shot to win, it's going to be Ottinger 10 times out of 10. Skinner compared to Picard, I wouldn't say it's 10 out of 10. It's probably 7-3 Skinner, but still. I don't think it's to rally the team. I think it's just to win the game, personally.
I agree with that argument. I mean, I still think, like I said, I understand the argument for Pickard to start game 4. Do I think it happens? No, but I understand the argument. Now, in the big picture, as I said a little bit ago, Pickard is 6-0 in these playoffs. So now you figure they've won 13 total games, and 6 of those have been won by Calvin Pickard. That leaves 7 games to be won by Stuart Skinner. That's not a wide margin for a starting goalie and a backup, especially in the playoffs. That's not how it should be.
And I didn't say this before, but if Picard never got hurt, he would probably still be the starter right now.
You took the words right out of my mouth, which is why I smiled when you put your finger up, because I knew exactly where you were going with that.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's my exact argument, that I understand the argument for Pickard, but I just feel like at this point of the season, you almost can't turn your back on Stuart Skinner, especially with everything that's been going on and surrounding Edmonton and their goaltending. That's just kind of looking the media right in the face and saying, hey, you were right.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, all in all, yeah, Picard probably would still be starting if he didn't get hurt. I mean, I feel like we're kind of circling. At the end of the day, you stick with the hot hand who's in net, and it's got to be Skinner. I just don't see how you can start a backup in game 4 after a bad loss when it's not your goalie's fault.
All right, now I want to get into a little bit of a separate conversation. One quick stat that I will throw out there is, in last night's game, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl both combined for 0 points. That was a given. We knew that. Connor McDavid had 2 shots. Leon Draisaitl was left shotless. Connor McDavid was a -1. Leon Draisaitl was a -2. Connor McDavid got bullied yesterday. It's not easy to catch Connor McDavid on the wall or in open ice just because of how fast he is. But the one player that did exactly that and did it better than anyone has all playoffs in yesterday's game specifically is the same man that got toe dragged and will be on highlight reels for years to come in Aaron Ekblad. Aaron Ekblad had 5 total hits in last night's game, 3 of which came against McDavid, one of them being that big open ice hit that he laid on McDavid, and the other 2 hits were on the worm, Corey Perry. With that being said, Aaron Ekblad did what he had to do on the defensive side of the puck, shut down arguably 2 of Edmonton's best 3 forwards as of right now. And then on the offensive side, he decided to add a goal and just say, hey, I could beat you physically, and then I could also beat you on the scoreboard. So did you guys notice anything? I mean, that's like a very specific stat, but watching the game yesterday, I noticed Ekblad tremendously in the defensive zone. So I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts just on not Florida's defensive play in the game, but more specifically Ekblad and how he's contained himself and carried himself this far.
You got something else?
Okay. Yeah, I can chime in on this. So, yeah, we can all look back at the Aaron Ekblad hit on McDavid, sent him to the locker room, came back out briefly. Normally a hit like that would be a momentum shift during the game. You know, fortunately for the Panthers, they already had all the momentum, so it wasn't like a complete change in the game. The player that I really think has not been given as much credit as I think is Gustav Forsling. Actually, I think he's on the same D pair as Ekblad, but you know, he's mano-a-mano with McDavid every shift. They're line matching him, and his stick, like, if you try to see McDavid go by him in a one-on-one or any sort of like gap situation, Forsling's stick is perfect. Like, he is all over the puck. McDavid can use his speed, but Forsling will force him out wide. You can see in game 1 or 2, McDavid almost had a breakaway and Forsling caught up to him. Like, this guy is getting paid $5 million when he could easily be getting like 8 to 10 as a defenseman for Florida, which is just another one of those ridiculous contracts. So Ekblad, yes, had a great game. Big physical presence on the ice. I think if you're going to highlight any Florida Panther defenseman for defensive skill, I would give it all to Forsling, just on the sole fact that they give him the responsibility to line up with McDavid every shift, and he's done a pretty damn good job of locking him down in key moments of games.
I mean, I don't really have anything specific on any of the Florida D pairs or any of the D men specifically, but I just think as a whole, their unit is all either huge defensemen that are gonna hit you every chance that they get, or like sneaky guys like Forsling or Seth Jones who are sneaky with their stick and still lay the body and are pretty speedy, as you said yourself. Gustav Forsling caught up to McDavid, but I just think the Panthers D, they've been doing it for years. They know how to defend in the playoffs. They're huge. They lay the body. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think Florida's defense yesterday played tremendous. My eye went to Ekblad. A big reason for that may have been because he laid a few big hits on McDavid. I noticed him as a primary reason as to why McDavid wasn't able to get anything done. But Forsling, Dozer, me and you have said this for the last couple of seasons, steal of a contract. One of the best contracts in terms of underrated player who should be getting a lot more than he is. I mean, Forsling, when he signed the contract, we were like, oh, wow, this might be a steal. Now it's hands down one of the best contracts in the NHL. But now you look a little bit forward into what you mentioned a little bit earlier, Doza. We didn't really talk about it, but we touched up on it, that the little UFC event that happened in the last 10 minutes of that third period. It all starts with none other than, or it doesn't start with Sam Bennett, but Sam Bennett's in the middle of it all, per usual. Sam Bennett's in the middle of it. He's getting interrogated by Trent Frederick, the former Bruin, and he gets one shot. He gets two shots. That third cross check, Frederick breaks his stick over Sam Bennett's arm. Earlier today at Panthers practice, Frederick was made available after their skate. He was asked about that situation. He goes, yeah, no, I gave him a couple shots. My stick broke. And he goes, I knew that there was going to be a penalty. So it was kind of just like a little shrug of the shoulders and like, it is what it is now. So that's kind of how that whole debacle got situated. And I'm pretty sure on that specific, that singular play, that big line brawl, there was like 116 penalty minutes, and 70 plus of them, maybe 71 to be exact, were against the Oilers. I was fortunate enough to be at the game. I saw that firsthand. Watching the game on television, what did you guys see unravel within that line brawl?
Just a whole lot of chirping, a whole lot of face washing, and a whole lot of punching. That's really it. I mean, I don't. I mean, I know that's hockey, and I love the playoff. I love the grit, but I hate when players do that when they're down 5-1. I just think it's like you kind of look like a sore loser in a way. You're down 5-1. You're coming back to play the
It's
same
Bush
team
League.
in 2 days. Why are you getting them all riled up to come beat your ass in 2 days again? Like, they're just gonna come out even angrier. I think the Oilers kind of started most of those encounters, most of those fights, and now you see what Kachuk did the game after Aho came and hurt Sam Reinhart. He took a whole shift just to stalk Aho down, put him into the ice, and shove him into the ice a couple times. I mean, what do you think Kachuk is going to do next game to McDavid or Draisaitl? He's going to be all over him.
Okay, that's a fair argument. But we also have to remember that Florida is very tactical in how they do that, because the only reason Tkachuk did that to Aho was because they were up like 5-2 against them. So Florida's not going to respond like that because they're a smart enough and disciplined enough team that they're only going to do that in a situation where they're ahead in the game and they can afford to get penalties like that. Now, again, watching from home, we all saw what happened, and, I just noticed a frustrated Edmonton team that was trying to do anything that they could to kind of fire the boys up on their side and rally the guys to not like quit, not just let the Panthers walk all over you with no response. Like, you can always view it as Bush League, but I kind of like it in a sense where it's reminding Florida that they're not going anywhere and they're not going to take any bullshit. Like, you guys are going to run us up 5-1. All right. I'm going to cross-check one of your best players and make sure that, like, he knows I'm going to be here for the next game too. Like, we're not just going to sit down and take this game with no repercussions. And honestly, if Edmonton was up 5-1, I think Florida would do the same exact thing to them. So this is not a response that you would probably see from Edmonton last year. So I like that this year they're kind of like digging their heels in and not taking any bullshit from anyone.
I agree in the sense that I like to fight out of the Oilers. Now, I agree with Dozer that I'm not a big fan of teams kind of going all UFC mode when they're losing, but I also agree with what Dud said in the fact that I think that Florida would do the same exact thing if the roles were reversed. Now, the reason why I don't think that Edmonton should have done what they did is because of what Dozer you said about the whole Sebastian Aho situation in that series. Florida's just going to come right back and listen, you guys want to play our game, you want to try to beat us at our game, we're just going to play our game better than you guys play our game. That's going to be the response. Now, on the other side, I don't have a problem with what Edmonton did because of what you said, Milko, in the sense where Florida would have done the same things if their roles were reversed. And Edmonton's like, hey, we've already lost this game. This game's over. So now the goal is to I don't want to necessarily say hurt somebody, but the whole goal is to wear you out and hurt you to where you're drained for the next game. It's similar to that little clip that we saw of Paul Maurice against, who was it? Against Tampa, I want to say, earlier this playoffs, where forget about the pretty plays. Put them through the boards, kill them for game 7. They're going to have no legs in game 7. We haven't gotten to that point of this series, but we've played pretty much 4 games worth of hockey already. There were 2.5 periods of overtime. So you're practically 4 periods into this series, but 3 games in. So I don't have a problem, but at the same point, I see both sides of the argument. I'll play devil's advocate, but personally, I think Edmonton, that first little line brawl, that was fine. But then after that, it's what they continued afterwards that I wasn't fond of.
I would say, going off of this game, I would expect Edmonton to play a very disciplined and back to their style of speed, getting to the net, getting shots to the net type of game, just because of how that went. And like when you have McDavid as a leader, I could only imagine what he's telling them all in the locker room, just because you saw the emotion he had in that Amazon live series that they posted. You know the passion he's going to bring, and you know how he can kind of rally his guys, and they're all going to listen to him. I mean, who wouldn't? He's the best player in the world. So going into next game, I would not expect to see any of that sort of riffraff going on. Obviously, you're going to have your scrums in between whistles, but I wouldn't expect to see any undisciplined plays, like players just punching guys in the face, stuff like that. If I was a bettor, I would probably bet that there's not going to be as many penalties from the Oilers. I would probably bet that there's less than like 2 penalties on the Oilers for the entire game.
I'll say this
That's
much
my
for
line.
one.
Under 1.5 or under 2.5.
I'm going to correct one of your statements and correct you and say, what do you mean if I was a bettor? Now, getting back to the game,
I don't know if that's a line you can bet on, but like, I'll fucking make it one.
But going back to the game, you're telling me that you think Edmonton's gonna go back to their game, and I completely agree with that. But the game that they were playing is Florida's game, and I don't think that Florida is gonna give that up because Florida's got the perfect trio of players within their lineup to not only get under someone's skin, but to be very disciplined doing it. Tkachuk, Bennett, and Marchand are 3 of the best players at their craft. And not only do they get under your skin, play like little shits, but they also, on top of everything, hurt you on the scoreboard. So as long as those 3 stay out of the box and stay disciplined with how they get under Edmonton's skin, I think that Edmonton's just going to get frustrated again. I think that Edmonton's going to slowly dig back just because of those 3.
Well, what I'm saying is like, I wouldn't compare Edmonton's game to Florida's game because Florida's just
No,
that
not at all.
chippy team that's really, really annoying. And I really think McDavid is going to keep his team composed. Like, okay, Florida scored. We're a great offensive team. We know we can score against them. We've done it to these guys. I think maintaining that bench is going to be the biggest key. And I also think it's going to be done because yes, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of emotion going on in these Stanley Cup playoffs. But this team's been here. They know how to be disciplined. And McDavid, if I was him, I would truly enforce that. And I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think you're going to see Edmonton biting into this whole rat game between Bennett, Marchand, and all the other Florida guys who are going to do what they normally do.
Now, the one thing I'll say is the only two players that I would be a little bit iffy about on Edmonton to not kind of follow McDavid's lead in terms of getting back to their game are Vander Kane and Jake Wallman. Wallman just got fined $10,000 today, $5,000 for two different situations from last night's game. And then Vander Kane, I mean, I don't even know what was going through his head yesterday. He was just a
the
madman.
wheels just fell off on him, dude.
So as a matter of fact, I kind of expect both of them to lighten up a little bit, but with the right poke of the right button, I feel like those two are maybe the two players that I'm a little bit worried about for Edmonton. But I agree that they're going to take a step back, but now it's going to be up to Florida to try to ramp them up again.
I mean, they're professionals, right? So they're not kids. So I think they're gonna understand that they need to handle the situation professionally. And like, I'm sure Wallman doesn't want to get fined another $10,000 for doing something stupid.
It's gonna come down to how that bench and how the Oilers react after either going down or giving up their first goal. Because you kind of saw it after them going down right away last game. They had that Corey Perry goal that I thought we were gonna see another crazy game after Perry scored the goal 2-1, and the wheels kind of just fell off again, and the whole game went to shit. But I think it really depends on how the bench reacts to the Panthers scoring, and like they need to respond and they need to score. Like they score a bunch of goals, they know how to score goals, and they can't get into the Panthers trap. Like we said, the Panthers play their game the best we've ever seen before. Like the grit, the skill, it's the perfect combination for the playoffs. It's just the other team has two of the three best players in the NHL. So that's really like the two difference makers for both teams is can the Oilers superstars take over, or can the Panthers grit just grind them down and bury them?
I think that's what makes this series so good, right? Because you have we all know these are the two best teams in the league, and they just play completely different styles, which makes it so fun to watch because you're not watching two similar, like it's not two high speed teams with just only skill guys. Like you have one team that's rugged and is just going to try to beat the crap out of you, and then you have one team that's full of loads of talent that can pretty much pull any trick out of the bag that they want. I think that's why this series is so intriguing to everyone in the NHL and also those viewers that don't watch.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are tuning into this series just because it's a rematch. When was the last time we saw a rematch? Not only like generally in a Stanley Cup Final. I mean, the obvious answer is 2008, 2009, but I'm talking like to this caliber. I wasn't old enough to remember the 2008, 2009 Stanley Cup Finals. Looking back at it, other than that being Crosby's first Stanley Cup and kind of like the comeback story of Pittsburgh, it's not the same. And then generally, you have a player like McDavid who's not only been dominating the series. I mean, okay, figure all 5 of his points came in the first 2 games, but none of those 5 points are goals. So after yesterday's game, you have someone like McDavid telling the media, we haven't peaked yet. We haven't showed you guys our best hockey yet. If I'm Florida, that would almost scare me. Like, it's not necessarily a Messier guarantee, but at the same time, when the best player in the world tells you, hey, as a team, we haven't reached our peak, that would scare me because guess what? You might, as a Florida Panther, you might be 2 wins away from a Stanley Cup, but Edmonton's not far behind with 3. So
Yeah,
I
but
think I think Game
I
4 is going to be an absolute barn burner, and I can't wait because I think these Florida fans are crazy. They know how to have fun in the stands. They were mocking Skinner until he was on the bus heading back to the hotel. So they're going to do everything in their power. Now it's up to the players to do their part.
yeah,
And
I
I'm excited.
what I want to say is I don't think either teams have played to the top of their capability. I mean, if you were to ask Barkov the same question, I'm sure he would respond in the same exact way because, like you said, you haven't seen McDavid score. He's made unbelievable plays, but you also haven't seen a lot out of the 2 top guys on Florida. So, I mean, that's what's going to make the following 2 to 4 games, however long this series goes, hopefully 7,
Hopefully
so
6.
intriguing. McDavid. Unless McDavid wins in 6, then I'm fine with it.
Listen, I have Edmonton in 6. That's still looking good.
I would love for McDavid to get his first ring.
Nah,
Let him
I'm
kiss the
hoping
cup.
Edmonton 6, but before we get into the wrapping up of the series, let's get into some Game 4 predictions. I want to hear what you guys are expecting out of this next one.
I'll go first. I am expecting an Oilers win, and I expect them to do it in a decently Oilers fashion. I think they're going to score a decent amount of goals. I'm going to predict 4-3 Oilers in regulation.
Okay. So I'm kind of obviously 50-50 here. My hunch is that the Panthers are going to take this game. They're going to keep this momentum going, stay at home. I know they haven't been the greatest home team, but I think with all that leadership and everything they have there that they're going to win game 4. But I really want Edmonton to win. I really want Edmonton to win, and that goes off based what I was saying earlier, how I think they're going to come out as a very disciplined team and going back to their roots and how they typically approach games. But all in all, I think that Florida's going to win. It's going to put Edmonton with their backs against the wall, kind of like last year, and it's going to, yeah, that's my prediction for Game 4. I won't get into the rest of it.
I'm gonna take Dozer's side on this one. I don't think. I mean, granted, I said the same thing after game or before Game 3. I don't think that Connor McDavid is going to let the Panthers get within a win again. Like,
I
I think
hope
that,
not.
or at least this morning, at home, with all the confidence in the world, said we're not done yet. He's like, we're not dead. This series is only 2-1. He goes, we win the next one. It's a best of 3, and we have 2 home games. That's Edmonton's mentality right now. And they're not looking at it as, oh, hey, we lose the next one, we're down 3-1. They're looking at it as, let's win the next one, because then all we have to do is play a best of 3, and we have home ice advantage again. So I agree that Edmonton is going to win Game 4. My score prediction is 5-3, but I think that.
Oh,
What's your score prediction?
Yeah, I got to go back into my score prediction. I'm gonna go kind of on the lower side here. I'm gonna go 3-2, Florida.
Yeah, so I have 5-3, and I don't see McDavid and Draisaitl getting shut down again. Like the way that they got defended in that Game 1, I don't think it happens again. And another point that I'm going to bring up is the fact that Connor McDavid has only recorded, I want to say, 1 even strength point in 5 Stanley Cup Final games in Florida. There's something about that building that Connor McDavid just hasn't been able to figure out. But I think that with his back pretty much on the wall in Game 4, we're going to see a dominant Connor McDavid. We're going to see a dominant Oilers team, and we're going to head back to Edmonton evened up for Game 5.
I just want to look at something real quick. I want to see how the Oilers have responded after losing games, because I feel like they typically have a really good response after losing.
This is the first time that they've lost back-to-back games since the first 2 games of the playoffs. So since they lost 2
Right.
straight to the Kings, whatever games they lost, I think they lost 2 games since then.
So
I
they're
guess now
typically
6.
able to respond really well when they're coming off a loss, and I'll give the credit to McDavid for that one. So great picks. Let's see what happens, boys.
Yeah, I just I want to get into a little bit of a general hockey conversation real quick to close up the pod. TJ Oshie, childhood hero, Olympic hero, United States,
Legend.
yeah, legend. He officially calls it a career. Over 1,000 games in the league, Stanley Cup champion in 2018. Doza, we know that you have a USA TJ Oshie jersey from the World Cup of Hockey that you wore at the Four Nations final,
I think I wore it in the podcast we did that day too.
and you also wore it at the podcast studio. I think congratulations on an incredible career. Obviously, Stanley Cup champion. Great for the game of hockey. He's going to be a missed player. That's another one down from our childhood. But yeah, huge congrats to TJ Oshie on just an incredible career. And then just to quickly wrap up the pod, we have some awards. So the most recent award that came out was today. Lane Hudson wins Calder, Rookie of the Year. Thoughts, comments? I mean, we spoke a little bit before we hit the record button, but
You want to go first, or you want me?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. He had an unbelievable season. He's gonna be so good for so long. He's so good with the puck, Lane Hudson. I just think it was obvious for him to get the Calder. I'm pretty sure he won it by a lot of points. I think he got over 3/4 of the first place votes. But what do you have? 70 plus assists in his rookie year.
66 to be exact.
66 assists in his rookie year.
Or
Running that
60
Montreal-
assists, 66 points.
Okay, 60 assists. But he's going to be running that Montreal power play 1 for the next 10 years down the road. And Montreal has a lot of young players. They're going to be sneaky team for the next couple of years. They're going to be scary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think that Montreal is going to be a sneaky team. I think they're going to be a good team. Obviously, you look back at their Cup Final run in 21, but that was a fluke. That was COVID. I think that now they have the young guys. They have the prospects, or not the prospects, but the young guns, and they're going to keep going in the right direction. So I'm not surprised about that. And then just some general awards that we've gotten word of through and through are obviously Jack Adams went to Spencer Carberry of Washington. The Selke we've spoken about a little bit earlier in this pod went to Barkov. Runner-up was Sam Reinhart, which that's pretty impressive for a team to have the top 2 defensive forwards in terms of Selke trophy voting. Bill Masterton went to Sean Monahan. He got surprised by Johnny Gaudreau's wife. Incredible video, incredible surprise. You could just tell how much it meant to him, which I feel like that just kind of warmed the hearts of all hockey fans. And then the Ted Lindsay Award for most outstanding player voted by the players went to Nikita Kucherov. And I don't think that was much of a surprise. He had another dominant season. So yeah, I mean, any other comments, fellas? I mean, Stanley Cup Final wise, award wise, I think we've touched up on pretty much everything that we wanted to talk about, and we have another day of rest before we get a Game 4 on Thursday night.
Yeah, so let's go Oilers, and let's go McDavid.
Yeah, Oilers in 6. It's still alive. Milks, let me know if you ever set up that line, whatever it was that you wanted to bet on. Let me know if you figure that one out. But I expect another episode.
No, I want that
pretty soon. I
Kings
expect
promo.
one as soon as yeah. One last thing that I want to touch up on before we officially wrap up the pod. Conn Smythe conversation. As of right now, Sam Bennett is the betting favorite to win the Conn Smythe. Does that shock either of you guys?
I think it depends on who wins, to be honest. I think if Florida wins, it'll go to Sam Bennett, and if the
No,
Oilers
no,
win,
no.
we all
I'm
know.
not. I'm not asking if you'd be surprised if he wins it. I'm asking if you're surprised that he's the betting favorite.
Yeah. That's so tough. I would always say McDavid. I would hedge my bets on McDavid, but then again, I think it depends on who wins. I am surprised that he is above McDavid in the betting odds, but I would also complement that to the fact that Florida is winning the series. I think if the Oilers were winning the series, McDavid would probably be the favorite still.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you're betting on anyone, it should be McDavid because he's got a chance to win it even when they lose. So might as well throw your bet on McDavid. But yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I think if the Panthers win, I think it's almost 100% going to Bennett. It's going to be Bennett or Bobrovsky if it's from anyone from Florida, I think.
I was gonna say with the record-setting playoffs that he's having, I would almost hands down give it to Bennett if Florida wins. Now, if Edmonton wins, we'll see. They have two good candidates. But Game 4 on Thursday, and Edmonton, it's a must-win. It's a must-win. Don't do what you did in Game 3. Do the complete opposite.
You can tune in
Until
live TNT, get all the
until un,
promos.
un, un, until Friday. See you next time.
See ya.
Peace.